Hello, and welcome back to BlockTalk, the show where the production quality is 10 times better than my interviewing skills. I'm your host with the most, Green Phlegm, and yes, I regret making that my username. Our next guest is someone you're all familiar with, I'm sure. His amazing Minecraft mods are probably the least interesting thing on his resume. The man has a PhD, for Christ's sake. He has more mods to his name than Greg Tech has recipes. Please welcome to the set for the first time, KingLemming.
What's up?
Hey, welcome on. Welcome to the first episode. How
Yeah,
you
thanks so
doing?
much for having me. I'm great. How about yourself?
I'm good. I'm good.
Love
We were
the
just
set, man.
Yeah, isn't it a great set? I mean, as I was saying
It is.
before in the pre-interview, the all credit goes to Taco Redneck, one of the most, the coolest set I've ever seen. So, I'm stoked to have you on. I'm trying to also switch the camera in the meantime, so it's all growing pains for this first one. But I just wanted to start off. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people in the community know who you are, but who are you? What do you do? What are you known for?
So I am KingLemming. I'm known for basically the thermal series of mods. It started, God, what are like it's 2019 now? So it started 2012 with thermal expansion. It's like Minecraft 1.2.5, and
Wow.
it's kind of grown for yeah, right. It's been forever now.
Yeah, you're an old head. You're an old head in the community. You,
Oh
de-
yeah,
you
I know.
you definitely you've been around for a bit, and so that's. I mean, I think that's partially why I wanted to have you on because I think you have a breadth of knowledge that a lot of people don't. That have been in the newer, or even just a couple of years ago. Things have changed so much from the beginning.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, even before that, let's go all the way back. Let's go back before Minecraft. How did you get into gaming? What got you your passions going on?
Oh geez. So for gaming, let's see. I guess I started playing games. I mean, like video games in general. We're going back to original Nintendo. So that's
Okay.
like 89, 90.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
know I'm getting way out of the Minecraft audience at this point, right?
Well,
But
hey man, it's interesting.
so no, I mean, no, it's yeah, I started then. I guess Super Nintendo was a big one for me, and 64. I was pretty diehard Nintendo. I got a PlayStation for Final Fantasy 7 because
Oh, you
of
got to. You
course you
have
do.
to.
Right,
It's legal. It's illegal to not.
it should be. Uh, and then when did I really get into PC gaming? I mean, we had a computer, but you're back in the mid 90s, so it's like we didn't have a Pentium. It was like 486. We got a
Hmm.
Pentium 2 at some point, but it's like got an EverQuest. And that was a big time waster for me. Like, literal years of life lost to that game. But it was fun. I don't regret it. As far as Minecraft, like I'm trying to remember how I eventually got into Minecraft. Like I liked doing the sandbox thing. I did some StarCraft modding at one point, just like minor stuff, playing around. I was like, hey, this is kind of interesting. I got into programming when I was geez, a long time ago. I'm gonna say also in the '90s. So I've been doing that a long time. I learned C, and Minecraft modding was a way for me to just like, hey, I want to know Java, so why not?
Yeah, it's definitely like a playground for people. I think modding is or Minecraft in general. Just it caters to a lot of that creative mindset, especially if you're a programmer. Do you find yourself programming more these days, like programming thermal expansion than playing the game? Because that seems to be what it's like now, right?
No, that's definitely what it is. I have barely played Minecraft, uh, honestly, in years. Like pretty much when I started making thermal, it was like, oh well, I guess I'm done playing this game now. I'm just gonna make mods and I forget why I made it. It's like there were a lot of reasons, but like specifically what set me off into like I want this block specifically. Um, but I think it was like we were making a cobble gen with red power, and like we had a really cool layout for it, but it was like this is ridiculous. This takes up a giant room, and we just really want some cobblestone, and this is kind of dumb. And it was also laggy because red
Right.
power, as cool as it was, a little bit laggy.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
So
So you wanted a very server efficient thing to make, yeah?
right. So it was that's kind of how the igneous extruder came about. And that was like also when I started making needlessly complicated, names for all my blocks.
As is
But
tradition.
yeah, I basically I liked Buildcraft a lot, and it's kind of a rough time for it. It was like the Buildcraft 2 to 3 transition, and that was not going smoothly. They just had heavily changed the API, and it wasn't really bug free. I mean, it was pretty bad actually. But basically nobody used Buildcraft because of the power system was weird and inconvenient. It was a lot of IC2, and it's like, yeah, I like Buildcraft, so I wanted to make some machines that ran on Buildcraft energy, so I did that, and that's kind of what fleshed out that original. I think it was like 6 machines. Like it was not much.
So the Igneous extruder was the first. I didn't know that.
It may not have been the first. I think technically the powered furnace was like the first because it was like I need to learn how to make a tile entity, and yeah, like long ago I wanted to do like uh, brewcraft, like just making beer and wine and that kind of stuff. So like the first block I ever made was like grapes on a trellis, and you had to shear them. I thought it was really clever. You had to break it with shears, and like it would regrow, but like a stage less. And it's like now that I've actually gone and done that again for thermal cultivation, it's like okay, it's a lot more clever now than it was back then, but it was kind of cool. Uh,
Hey man, for first effort, that's not bad. I
yeah,
don't think.
it wasn't bad at all. But yeah, basically the tile entity came along in the development process. And it's like, oh, I need to do this, and then I kind of figured it out. And from the tiles and like that, what's it called? I-sided inventory, like the concept of sided inventory in Forge. When I um, I was playing around with it, and I realized, oh, I can assign different slots to different sides, like on a whim, and then that's like when reconfigurable sides came out. Like that was one of the first big innovations with thermal expansion.
Yeah, I think that sort of differentiated it from a lot of the tech mods out there at the time. Especially obviously because of the also the server friendliness of it as well. I think that's sort of what gave it a lot of popularity. Um, what were you? I might have my timeline incorrect, but were you one of the founding members of Forge, or there in the early days?
Um, I was not a founding member of Forge. No, that was so yeah, Space Toad, Elram, Flower Child
Mm-hmm.
actually as well at
Shout
one
out.
point, and then yeah, and I think I'm not even sure Lex was a founding member.
I
I don't know, right? He
Yeah, I
may
don't
have
think
been.
so. Who knows? Maybe I can ask him
Possibly
someday.
not, but yeah, he's done great things with it certainly, and I'm glad he took it over. But I'm not sure he was there at the very beginning. And you got to remember, the beginning of Forge was like you also had to install Risugami's mod loader.
Yeah, I might. Yeah, I think I have my timelines a little mixed up. Yeah, that was a long time ago. That was beta
Yeah.
or late beta,
That was
maybe early
125.
release, or it was 1.25. Okay, okay.
It was up through 125, and the big growing pain, like the reason 125 is still somewhat discussed. Like some people are like something awful, and some other
Mm-hmm.
places still say, oh, like it's a big version like 1710 is because when Forge made the jump to 132, then it like kind of swallowed the mod loader. It had their own, and CPW wrote the Forge mod loader, and that's been with it ever since. I mean, up until now, really. And then 113, they completely gutted it and redid everything. So
Yeah,
that's gonna be
it's
fun.
gonna be a crazy time. It's gonna be a
Oh
crazy
yeah.
time.
I'm not too worried. I mean, I don't think 113 is actually going to be that big. I think 114 will be huge.
You think it's
But
another 1.8?
yeah,
Okay,
more of a 111, I'd say, in that it's just because the timing of it and the relative lack of content and substantive changes, people will port to it, but only on their way up to 114.
got it. It's just a
Like,
stepping stone.
yeah, that's all
Okay,
it's going to be. And I
okay.
mean, there's going to be a lot of really good technical work done there. Forge has a lot of stuff. I know that, changes that are really good. You're erasing years of technical debt, and it's it'll be a good thing, but I don't expect 113 itself to take off.
Got it. Got it. Okay, that's interesting because hearing it from your side, at least on from the modder side, because from a player side, I have no idea. I mean, all I know, like you said, I only know the dangers in the actual gameplay, and as far as I can tell, it's not that much. So it's interesting hearing that from you. So I know you're throwing a wrench in my questions because I have a generic
Oh, I'm
form of
sorry.
questions. No, it's all good, but so like a lot of the people that I'd be interviewing, they're not exactly as established in life, I guess what I would be saying. But I mean, you have a PhD, you're college educated. So normally the question I would ask is how has Minecraft helped you in like your professional life? But has it at all? Like, have you used it at all, or is it just something that you do for fun?
It's something I do for fun, but it's also it's interesting because it's gotten a lot of other people in my life jobs.
Okay.
So a lot of things have happened. There's been kind of some butterfly effect stuff that happened with it, and it hasn't benefited me greatly yet. I mean, I never want to rule that out, right?
Yeah.
But I got a lot of great friendships out of it. My original artist, Cynical,
Right.
and he's still my artist technically, but he's really busy these days, so less so. He works at Microsoft now. Like he's one of the Minecraft guys.
No way. I
And
didn't know that.
yeah, yeah, and
Wow.
he got
Congrats
that
to him.
basically because yeah, it's actually kind of dumb because he has a master's degree in digital art and he's had a like really fantastic portfolio. He does sound, he does all kinds of stuff. And then they saw the pixel art for Minecraft. It's like, hey, you're hired. Like he couldn't get a job for a long time, and then they're like, oh, you made some really good looking like 250 pixel things. Yeah, we'll bring it.
It's probably the exposure and popularity of it,
Yeah,
right? Yeah, like that's
yeah, I mean,
amazing.
and to be fair, I mean, it's also him like seizing the opportunity and completely working his tail off. Like I don't remember when he went in there. Like I think he went in as like a temp or a contract hire, and he saw it as like this is huge and I need to prove myself, and he did.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, obviously, Zelda, I met him through a mutual acquaintance of ours, Malinex, on IRC, and he basically said, "Hey, I know this guy, and he made teleport pipes, and he wants to work with you, and you two should talk." And it was cool because at the time I was like, "Oh shit, I remember teleport pipes. That was great. Like I really loved that mod." And yeah, so we started talking, and Zelda was helping me out with it, and then it was like I guess it was a couple years in. It was probably right after 1.5 of Minecraft, maybe 1.4. He got like we went to a PAX. He got hired by Curse, and then Twitch bought Curse and whatever. So either way, he works at Twitch now,
That's
basically
insane.
because of his association with me, which is weird, right?
It's crazy, and I don't think a lot of people realize how impactful it is for some people.
Oh
And
yeah, it's
yeah, and I think that's what I love to focus on when I explain to people, because like, oh, it's just a block game, blah blah blah. No, if you put the effort, or if like, if sure there's a little bit of luck, but the opportunities that can come out of it is amazing. Is really cool. Um, and that's so cool. I'm so glad to hear that. I knew about the Zelda thing, but I did not know about the cynical thing. That is so cool.
yeah.
Um, where do you? I mean, Minecraft's seeing kind of another surge in popularity recently, but I mean, it's far from its heyday. But where do you see modding going in the future with whatever Windows 10 version becomes, or whatever it goes? Where do you personally see the future of it going?
I mean, like looking around the studio, dude, this is the future, right? Like we we're
Living
in the
in
future now, but
3008.
like this is crazy. Um, but I think lately Microsoft as a company has pretty much been on a tear. Like I won't say they can do no wrong, but everything they've done with not just Minecraft, but like GitHub and I mean even LinkedIn,
Yeah, like the
that all
adaptive controller, like everything
yeah,
they've
the
been. Yeah,
adaptive controller is amazing. And like
yeah,
Xbox, it's like, yeah, the console lost, but the community is perfect.
yeah, and the
Like,
service Xbox Live thing, it's going to be
yeah.
everywhere. Yeah.
And I think they're coming around to more like working together and all,
Hmm.
and which is cool. But like as far as Minecraft goes, they've been there. I mean, a lot of the devs on Bedrock right now, they're fans of thermal. They're fans of mods
Yeah.
and all that. So I talked with a few of them at Minecon. It's like, they knew of the stuff I'd done, and it's just that was crazy to me. So
Well,
yeah,
that's great
it's
to hear. I remember there was such a panic when Microsoft bought it,
oh yeah,
and I'm glad to see. I don't even know how many years later. I'm 4. I'm assuming years later that it's still strong. Um, I mean, I don't know. What do you think it would take to get, like, CurseForge was a thing, and it was supposed to be like the take it to the mainstream, and it sort of has. FTB was that in the past. It's supposed to be the easiest way to install something, but it still seems like there's some sort of barrier to entry for people to be able to get into it, play without having to resort to going to a forum and bug fixing, going down crash reports and
yeah.
stuff. What do you think it either Microsoft or the community would take to get this to super mainstream status? I don't know, like any kid could pick it up and just install all their mods they wanted to.
Realistically, that's going to be Bedrock.
Yeah.
So the big step is going to be the Bedrock API. When that finally happens, modding will go super mainstream.
Got it.
The reason it won't on Java is because we just have so much power and flexibility that modders can do things that you end up with weird interactions, you end up with crashes, things like that. The Bedrock API is not going to have that. Strictly speaking, it will have less power. I mean, that's just the nature of it. It's going to, but it has to because they have a really wide base, like install base. So it's not just like, Win 10 or mobile or whatever. It's got to run the Switch, and that
Yeah,
means
that's a great
whatever
point.
you install has to obey like Nintendo's rules and iOS's rules and whatever else. So I don't know technically what that entails, but I know it's not here have a jar file because
Right.
yeah,
That's just too
that's
much
not going
power.
to go.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, I mean a jar is you're basically just putting an executable on your machine and trusting that, hey, they're not gonna, this isn't a virus, right? Which it's amazing that the community has evolved to the complexity it has on
It
this model.
it really has. You're right. Like, I don't think people. I think it's because it's called a jar. It's not as spooky. But if it was just labeled, .exe or something like that, I think it would just be. I think it would have been dead on arrival.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's weird because it's called Java. Why is it not a mug file,
Oh
right?
my
Like,
god, you just
right?
blew my mind. It should be, and I'm
It
petitioning
should
that right
be.
now.
Yeah,
Change.org doesn't change anything, but let's do it,
right,
guys.
right. And there's no change left anymore.
And knowing Oracle, it would never change anyway.
Well, Oracle, they've actually picked up a lot too.
I
That's been
mean,
kind of
okay, maybe I'm
interesting.
an old
Like,
hat. Maybe I didn't realize
because,
that.
well, I mean, when you think about it, like, what version of Java did Minecraft release for? Was it 5?
Yeah, that would is at least the first one. Yeah.
Yeah, and we're on Java 11 now.
Mm-hmm.
You got to figure Java started. I want to say we're going back to 99 ish,
It's one
2000,
of the
right?
oldest, one of the older ones.
So, yeah, I mean, for a long time, Java had a really bad reputation,
Mm-hmm.
and that was earned on some level, but as far as the language goes, it's really matured. So I'll give them props too. That's fair, and we code in Java 8 now. I think that's at least required by Forge. I don't know if Minecraft is on J8 yet officially, but
I think they do because they package their own version now, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's pretty slick. Like I'm happy on 8 compared to all the other versions that I've had in the past.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember when that transition was happening, people weren't too happy, but it seemed like it was for the better.
Oh, it
Um,
definitely was. Yeah.
what do you? I mean, sorry, we've been talking so much about the community and everything like that, but I do want to actually talk about the thermal series and where do you actually see it going in the future? I've seen. I mean, I follow your stuff, and you always talk about you have grand plans for the series. It always seems like, and it seems like that now is the time that you're working pretty hard on getting that image and that vision to happen. What do you see in the future?
Yeah, and it's it's a problem because I do have all these plans for it, and like every iteration, it's like I always just kind of fail to execute a little bit, and I compromise with it. So like 1.7, I was burned out pretty hard. I thought that was a good iteration, and then covers and Brandon brought me back in um, for like 110 through 112, and I with every iteration of it, I kind of want to throw out what I feel didn't work. Like I have concepts of what I want the player to be able to do, but as far as the actual gameplay, that's a little bit more malleable. So things like augments and the different tiers of machine or cell or whatever upgrade kits, that's an experiment I think right now, and it's sort of worked. I don't know. Ultimately, really, what I want to do is get it so that you can have a world and it's just thermal stuff, and you don't feel like you're missing like any substantial amount of content. Obviously, I still want to play well with all the other mods, and that's fine. I mean, a lot of the Forge energy system is really just RF repackaged. The fluid system, I mean, I wrote that actually in 1.6, and it's been I won't say mangled. It's been maintained, but it's it it didn't have the best base, and I've been sort of an absent parent on that one. So it's the quirks in the Forge fluid system. You can blame those on me. That's fair.
See, I think that's why I thought you were part of Forge in the early years, is because I remember the fluid system. But yeah, I didn't realize that was so long. I mean, there was only 1.6. That, in the grand scheme of things, that was relatively recently.
Well, I
That's actually,
mean,
no, that might have been 3 4 years ago at this point. Oh
right?
my
No,
god.
that's the 1.6 is you're going back to 5 years now.
Oh my
It's
god.
less
What is wrong?
recent, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
jeez.
So, and that's the thing. We actually ported it from Buildcraft, because what was happening was kind of the same thing that was happening with energy systems, was that Buildcraft had their own. Most people had standardized on it. Then I think like Greg Tech kind of had his own, but it was also Buildcraft compat. And then you had Red Power, and Elron was off doing her own thing. So it's like, okay, we need to figure out fluid. So that was worth doing.
Interesting. Interesting. I didn't. Yeah. It's that's another thing about this community. I think that's a pretty big departure from all the others, is the amount of interplay there is between developers and the mods themselves. Like if you go into Skyrim modding, it's just like a nightmare to deal with. You just have to worry about load order, everything. It feels like going back to the days of 1.1, deleting meta inf and stuff like that. Like the amount of cohesion and stuff that has been created from the community, I think is kind of unparalleled in any other community. I don't know. You've been around a little longer than me. I mean, I don't know if you've been involved in any other mod communities. I know you do Stellaris stuff, right?
I had for a while. I need to get back into it. Basically, I had a lot going on just in real life, at the time when their last big update dropped, and I just kind of said, I'm going to wait for this to settle. Part of it was their last update was a little contentious. It released with I would say more bugs than most of their updates, so it was a problem. A lot of major gameplay changes, so a lot of my stuff's like, I got to port this. A little annoying, but I just haven't had the time to sit down and do it all. And part of it with Stellaris is every now and then they change the game so much that if you like have a concept in a mod, or the entire mod like just doesn't make sense anymore. So then what do you do with it? Well, sometimes you just throw it out. And or even underline if it doesn't make sense, like the engine no longer supports what you were doing. And it's not like Forge where you you have a jar, you can make your own concepts, make anything you want. It's far less freeform than that.
Yeah, yeah. I guess that's what my point was, is that it just really feels like it's freedom to a detriment. Sometimes it seems like modding is, but
Oh yeah.
it's great. And I mean, that sort of ends my questioning. I guess I have to do the I have to ask, Tesseracts, are they coming back?
So In the form that they existed
Sorry.
in, no.
Okay.
No, it's fair. So I have a concept basically called ender routing, and part of it is I unfortunately, we're at a point. I like ducts. I like when things move through tubes, and it looks kind of cool. You get that whole industrial aesthetic, but after a point, people just want from to move from point A to point B, and maybe it's cross dimension, maybe it's whatever. They just don't want to deal with piping or transport. I get that. That's fine. And the idea there is to have something that will accomplish that, but with limitations. The Tesseract was just too much. It was really easy to make. It was pretty easy to code. So it's just what I want to do is have people like you have to hook up. It's a block, but not really. It's just like a panel that you're gonna slap on the side of the machine. It'll act as an interface, almost like an antenna, and that'll hook to an Ender network where you can determine routing. So it's like a combination of the Tesseract and like Steve's Factory Manager, if you remember that.
Whoa, throwback. Yeah.
And yeah, so I've kind of got this boilerplated out, and I mean I've tested some of the hard logic, and it works. It's fine. I realize there are situations where really what people want from the Tesseract is just unlimited flow between 2 points. And for that, it's like, okay, I hear you. And I've already made I call it an Ender tunnel. I might change the name. I don't know yet. But it basically it uses capabilities and it just mirrors them on either side. So when you like look at this block, what it does, it looks at its companion block and whatever its block sees on the other side. So it does work, but it's one of these things. It's like if I don't make it a hard chunk loader, then
That's
it's
issues right
not
there.
consistent. Yeah, and I don't, chunk loading as a mechanic, I don't like. Or rather, I don't like it as explicit. Like the player shouldn't have to be aware of it as a thing.
It
But
shouldn't be
unfortunately,
called a chunk loader, you're saying? Like it shouldn't be.
I mean, in modded, right? It's like people know so much about the game and the underlying engine that you have this knowledge, but for just making something and having it work, you shouldn't need it. So, yeah, I mean, I could just make these things chunk loaders and they keep things alive all the time, and that's fine. But then eventually you get a community large enough, it's like, hey, why is server performance down? Well, because you have chunks loaded, because that's just it. You're fighting this the underlying engine basically.
Right. That makes sense. Well, I'm
Yeah.
I'm I'm so glad to hear that there will be back in some way.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you always have an interesting spin on things. I don't expect it to be always like, just here's a block, Tesseract, boom, it's gonna be back. I think you've evolved past that, and I think you realize that too. Yeah, that it's not just gonna be a
Yeah,
Tesseract
I mean,
anymore.
I think people will be happy with the well, I don't know.
Nobody's ever
We'll see.
happy. Let's be honest.
No, right. Nobody's happy, but I think when I do get the next thermal out, and I'm currently rewriting it all. I'm doing it under 112, but like with an eye to the future. So the idea on that is I'm getting rid of all the metadata. So if you install this on 112, it's going to eat a lot of block IDs. I mean, that's just kind of the nature of it. Item IDs are less of a concern right now. I mean, it's still going to use a lot of them, but hopefully this will make it easier for me. But what I'm kind of doing is making it a lot more modular, building it out more so that thermal expansion is really going to be focused on dynamos and machines. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with like the storage options yet. I've wanted to unify cells and tanks and caches into like just a storage unit, and I haven't determined where that's even going to sit right now. All of like the handheld tools, including the capacitor, are going to go into thermal innovation. So it's really just a tool mod. Cultivation right now has, well, not all of them. Cultivation has the watering can and the harvester scythe and a bunch of crops right now. I just started up locomotion yesterday. That's going to be tracks and mine carts and a few other things that, not to any extreme degree necessarily. I mean, there's like Rails of War and, obviously Railcraft and these huge mods that just go nuts with trains. I'm not trying to like compete or outdo any of the mods that already do this stuff. I just want to give it a little bit more flavor and put kind of an interesting spin on it. Like Harvestcraft is amazing, but I have no desire to try and approximate anything like that.
Yeah, yeah. It can
It's
be in
got
its
like
own lane.
8,000 foods or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's not the goal. And my goal really with all of this is I'm not out to really make a kind of a shallow clone of any of it, but just flesh out the world a little bit more and add some interesting mechanics to it.
I think that's the great, yeah, it's the best summation of your efforts, I think, in modding. Well, thank you so much for being the first victim for this series.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
No problem. I'm gonna press a button now, and I hope, yes, the camera angle worked.